Lutas has had a fascinating journey, as you know, created by Bill and some crew, some helpers,
yes,
for Expo 86, and went on to Paris. How did Lutas get to Paris?
Well, this is
one fine day.
Yes, another vision of Bill. Of course, after the canoe was finished in '86, it was paddled back to Haida Art. It was an incredible journey, also the first time in the century this took place. And that created an amazing revival among Aboriginal people on the coast. But 1989 was a very important year. It was the bicentenary of the French Revolution, and Professor Lévi-Strauss, the famous French anthropologist, was being acknowledged as, and it was also his 80th birthday at that time, by the Musée de l'Homme, the equivalent of the Museum of Man in Paris.
Right.
And Lévi-Strauss was asked to have his works, the works of the Aboriginal North and South American Indian with whom he had worked all his life, to be represented in the Musée de l'Homme. And Lévi-Strauss said, yes, but I want Bill Reid's work there. And Bill and Lévi-Strauss were quite friends at that time. Bill said, yes, honored, of course, but I want Lutas there. And not only I want Lutas there, but I want Lutas and a delegation of 15 Haida paddlers. I don't want Lutas to be seen only as an object. It has to be seen as a living art form.
An entity.
An entity. And it was actually the first time that a living artist was represented in that museum in Paris.
So he called Air Canada, or somebody called Air Canada?
No.
How did Lutas get to France?
It was actually shipped to Rouen. And the canoe was paddled from Rouen to Paris over a week period, 900 kilometers, with the French school children looking at the canoe as he was passing
Under
by.
the bridge?
Under the bridge. Well, of course, under the bridge of the Pont Neuf. Bill was a very funny man. He had an amazing sense of humor. And he said he wanted to paddle under the Pont Neuf. And of course, the Pont Neuf, neuf meaning new, is the oldest bridge of Paris. So he did. And not only did he do that, but he stood up as we went underneath it. And it was an extremely moving moment. He took my hand. We were tearful. And this dream of his was realized. And what went up in his mind at that time is quite extraordinary, but I kind of link it to the main chief in the spirit of Haida Art, leading the boat in some unknown direction. But here we were on our way to l'Hôtel de Ville in Paris, where Chirac, Monsieur Chirac, was actually the mayor there and hosted us magnificently.
What an experience.
Yes.
What an experience. And Lutas now is where? Haida Art?
Lutas is in Haida Art and performs regularly. He carried the torch for the Olympics and is used regularly for very important occasions.
When I look at something like Lutas, I think, where does a man like Bill Reid start? Obviously with the tree, but the vision, because the master carvers and some of the ancients were gone.
Right.
So who do you call to say, hello,
no one.
I want to build a 50-foot canoe.
No one.
And who do I call to find out exactly what I should do?
Well,
where are the plans?
He did his own work, of course. He talked to people who had little memory, but very little, read the literature. Most of it was not very accurate. So he did it by experience and by trial and error, making these 3 prototypes, as I said earlier.
Amazing journey, creative journey, and the quest for his identity, a linkage of the Aboriginal peoples and the rest of us.
Yes, and also bringing back that identity to the Haida people, because you have to remember that 10 years before, Bill had carved a pole for Skidegate, raised the pole in Skidegate, and that had actually changed the cultural landscape there. And based on that very encouraging situation, Bill thought that maybe by making a canoe, that would bring back that identity.
Connection to the ancestors.
Connection.
All of that, connection.
Connection. And the canoe is the perfect symbol that connects.
And it's the symbol we see when we fly, as you know so well, the jade canoe, the spirit of Haida Gwaii, bronze, really.
Yes. Well, Bill would have never created that sculpture had he not been working or being involved with the making of Haida canoes. This is an extension of this journey. When Arthur Erickson asked him to carve 2 welcome posts for the Canadian Embassy in Washington, D.C., Bill looked at him and said, all you are going to get is a canoe. Keep talking. You know, welcome posts are not part of the Haida tradition and belong to the tradition of the South. He said, all you are going to get is a canoe. He had not completed his creative journey. This is the way Bill worked. An idea would take on and last for a very long time until he's completely satisfied with it, and then he moved into something else.
Did he start carving jewelry? Was that his beginnings?
Yes.
In gold and silver? And
yes. He's
in Montreal? Where was he?
In Toronto.
In Toronto.
At the Ryerson Institute. In 1947, he did that for 3 years, doing an apprenticeship, formal, classic Western apprenticeship in jewelry. And he's actually the only Northwest Coast artist who has approached Northwest Coast art from the jewelry medium. And Bill always said that if he has been able to accomplish what he has accomplished, this is thanks to all the skills that he had learned during that time. Because jewelry making is solving problems. Bill was fascinated with hinges, invisible hinges, or a clasp that would snap. Everything had to be perfect. So with the canoe, which was amazingly complex to do, bringing all his talents together and new ones, because he had to discover so much. This is what is amazing about this man. Yeah.
And when you look at small vessels, food vessels in Haida culture, and how they are similar shapes as a canoe.
Right.
Like, whoever thought about that except Bill Reid?
Well, the canoes were so omnipresent in these people's mind that as a symbol, of course, the canoe was a symbol of wealth. It was a symbol of many things, but wealth was important because wealth was carried by canoes, was contained in canoes, and containment is a very important
and war fought
concept.
in canoes.
Yes, and all the canoe dishes have even the details of the gunnels and very imprinted in these people's mind. So canoe makers and art makers obviously had evolved this design over time and were facing the same problem when they had to realize something else was
Is there a Bill Reid canoe in the Canoe Museum in Peterborough, Ontario?
No.
No.
No. There is a Victor Adams canoe from Masset that was carved in 1971.
I thought there was a Haida canoe, yes, but not a Bill Reid. But that's okay. We have one here.
Right.
How nice to see you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. And we'll be to the Bill Reid Gallery to have a gander one of these fine days.